Okay. Hi, I'm Betty Magnus. I am Vice Chair of CWTA. And as you know, our esteemed speaker for tonight was unable to join us, and he will join us at a future meeting. But we have a pretty exciting meeting scheduled for today. I want to welcome you all, those of you, anyone that is the first time, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully you will join CWTA and remain a constant member and attend our meetings every month. I would now like to turn the meeting over to Jane Ramsey, who is the chair of our, let me get the name right, Guns and Accountability.
Close enough. I think
we've had to change the name twice.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's community safety and accountability.
Safety and accountability.
But it's all about police accountability and gun violence prevention. Is really the heart of it.
Jane Ramsey, you can take it away.
Thank you, Betty, and it's good to see all of you. And tonight, our topic remains immigration for the first half. And for the second half, we're really going to shift. And I'm going to shift to Mary Driscoll and Helen Schiller, who will then lead a discussion as we look to November and elections and how we can be responsive. But in the first half, we Fred Tsao from ICER, Illinois. I was on the board, and I'm Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. Yes. Was to be with us, and he will be with us at a future meeting, but he's ill, and but we wanted to get into this, and we really want to gather information that we will then share with Fred about your interests and concerns relating to immigration, and particularly relating to the new migrants who have come to Chicago and the set of issues that is presented for them and for and within Chicago communities. And so we really want to do listening. And I'd like to kick it off to you all and ask us to brainstorm and to share and to hear from you in relative. Let's just start with, what are your interests and concerns relating to the immigration broadly, and the new migrants who have come to Chicago? And I think if we can use you can use the reactions to raise your hand like that, or just raise your hand like that. And I think we'll, if I can just, Betty, we'll start with you.
I didn't really want to be the first one, but I have talked to so many people recently who totally misunderstood what Bring Chicago Home meant. And when they found out, they had already voted no, and they're just like, I wish I had a better understanding of it. So I think we just, if it comes back, we just got to do a better job at it.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. A whole nother conversation. And I think I have a hand raised, and it's a telephone, so I don't your name, but for our member who is on by phone
number 0648.
Yep. If that's a hand raised.
I don't see a hand raised.
Okay, if not, okay, all right. If not, okay. So let me ask you all. Let me pose a question.
Freddie has her hand up.
Freddie, wonderful.
Hi, my name is Freddie Shuford. I am the VP of Care at the AIDS Foundation of Chicago. Have a
Right.
long history at the Cook County Hospital. Hey, Mary.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yes. Long time no see. Yes. So primary interest is with the immigrants, our newcomers who are coming over that are HIV positive and coming over not really familiar with the healthcare system. Some of them states they've never really had even a medical checkup. So entering into the healthcare system has really been difficult for them to navigate it, to understand it. We're looking at they have no phones, they don't have documentation. So we worked with the state to look at documentation that they normally accept from people who are citizens or residents to see how we can modify that to make sure they can get on the AIDS drug assistance program, because we know those medications are vital for their health. So I think just looking at the barriers that our systems have that prevent or cause long delays for these individuals to access these needed services. And I would include in that housing, food, transportation, for women who are pregnant and have children, all those vaccines and everything that's necessary to really assure their health, and along with them now managing the HIV diagnosis.
Great. Thank you, Freddie.
Anne has
That's
her hand up. Not her name, her hand up.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Anne.
Anne.
Okay, thank you. So on my way home from UI Health today, walking towards downtown, I decided in light of today's meeting to walk past Polk Street and I was just there, Jefferson or Clinton, where the entry spot is for new immigrants who are getting bussed in. And I feel like one of the things that I didn't expect to feel when I went by there, which I wanted to make sure to say today, is that it's off in the middle of nowhere. I live near there. I hardly ever go over there. There were 4 CTA buses hanging out there saying, "Welcome to Chicago," or courtesy of CHA warming bus. They're just sitting there idling. There wasn't anything going on. Kitty corner from that spot, there's the Tesla dealer. I did not realize that. So that's a really odd juxtaposition. But it really just made me think that, like, making sure now that nobody is being housed temporarily in the police stations, kind of closer to home, or that it is going to be very easy for people to just say, "Oh, well, maybe that's over, maybe that's gone, and there's not an issue." And I really think that our voices to help make sure that we keep the concern for all of our newish and long-term residents who need support, that we need to keep that in mind. So
Kathy, then Mary Driscoll. I'm sorry, Carol, and then Mary Driscoll.
Okay. I'm concerned about as our new residents of the city of Chicago are exiting the shelters and the temporary shelters, and I live like 2 blocks from the Chicago Armory, which was a major shelter on the north side of the city. As they leave these places, I'm not sure where they're going, but I read an article today that said many of them are really concerned because they don't have work permits and they don't have the documentation they need to actually get jobs. And we've stopped them from doing things like cutting hair and things like that, which some of them have the skills to do, but we've told them, no, you can't do that. I don't know how they will sustain themselves if we don't move forward. So one of my questions for Fred when we have that meeting, but it's a question now that's really a pressing question, is, are these people going to be able to be helped and get what they need so they can find work? Because I truly believe that we are told that work is available if they have the right papers. And we're not getting them the right papers.
Great. Great, thank you. Thank you,
Mary
Mary.
and then Judith.
Yeah, so my question is kind of in the sky, but you know, a lot of people say that we need an immigration policy, that we don't have one. So I'd like to ask Fred what he thinks of that and what he thinks his best, using his best knowledge, what he thinks if we have an immigration policy, what it should look like. That would be my question.
Great, thank you. And
Judith?
that can, and we have different levels, and maybe we can present that too, because there's the big overall, obviously the federal policy, which I think you're
Yeah,
alluding to.
Alluding to, yeah,
So that's the big one, but then there's also the state and the local,
right.
which impacts. So let me just put that. Okay, great.
Judith?
Yeah, I had a big question too, related to employment, that, you know, courtesy of our right wing, there's an anti-immigration kind of narrative that a lot of people are starting to buy. And, you know, on the one hand, on the other hand, you hear these pockets, like I just heard this thing on Lincoln, Nebraska, that has a labor shortage, and they're figuring out how to offer skills training in people's native languages so that they can start to work in these needed industries, you know, once the work permit is done. So, you know, how do we change the narrative, or what can we do to work to change the narrative and then set in place the various parts of the pipeline to get people to work?
Ellen?
You know, I read the papers about this, but I feel like I don't have any real reaction from the people who are migrants about, you know, like, what's it like to come here? What are the needs they have that are not being met? You know, clearly the work permits is one, housing is certainly one, but just, you know, thinking, are there other things that need to be paid attention to that we just, you know, haven't quite got a handle on?
Great.
Could you hear her, Jane?
Yep. Good. Good. And I think we don't. And that's such a great point. We read all the press reports. We read of people's reactions. We're not seeing much reporting from the migrants themselves. That's
Yeah, actually, I heard a really good interview on the radio within the last couple of days, and maybe we can ask Fred if you know, sort of collecting these interviews would be something that would be helpful, or if he has them that we could put out.
great. Other concerns that you have?
Karji, am I pronouncing that first name correctly? Karji Bernadine?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Yes,
I'm
Cargie
sorry if
is
I
my last name.
mispronounced your name.
And tell us where you're from, and welcome.
My name is Bernadine Cargie. It's pronounced in 2 syllables with a hard G, as in go. And I'm an immigration attorney, and I was just on the internet today, and I happened upon this note that Fred was speaking to this group. So nice to meet you all. And thank you for all of your concern about the immigrants. I'm an immigration lawyer for 100 years. And I just picked up on this conversation about work permits. And are you familiar with the website welcometoillinois.org? Welcometoill.org. This is an unprecedented partnership between the private bar, not-for-profit agencies, and the government. There are workshops going on Tuesday through Friday at downtown for people who have been in the shelters. We worked with people in the shelters for the month of January. And the last couple of months, we've been working with people who are not in shelters. And they can go to welcome to il.org to make an appointment and get free consultation, free assistance, free filings. The Immigration Services waiving the filing fees for work permits and temporary protected status applications. They're taking the photos and fingerprints of the clients right there, accepting the filings and making decisions on work permits within 4 to 6 weeks, which is unprecedented. I'm old enough to have been a young lawyer back in the amnesty days. And it was such a fight to do anything, but to have the government working with us to help the people who qualified to get over this is marvelous. And the question about working, if you are an independent contractor or an entrepreneur, you do not need a work permit. You can get an ITIN and what is it, a tax ID number to pay your taxes and report your earnings. So lots of immigrants, lots of my clients did hair, they did braiding, they did manicure, all that as independent. So there are ways for immigrants to make money while they're waiting for their work permit, or if they don't qualify for a work permit. So yeah, that's my contribution. Is Fred coming on tonight or no?
Fred is coming. Fred is ill, but so we'll be scheduling him. He was scheduled for tonight. He will be coming on. We're gonna reschedule probably at our next general meeting. So this is really helpful, Bernadine, because we're gathering information we are now going to share with Fred to let him know some of the resources we have here and some of the concerns. So we really appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Terry has her hand up, Jane.
Terry.
Hi, I wanted to ask Bernadine, how do they know about your services? How do people find this information where they can fill out a forms, that they can cut hair? How do most people get info they need to survive?
The word was put out in the shelters, you know, through all the case management that was done through all of the organizations. Catholic Charities was one of them, and many other social service agencies. Getting the word out to people not in the shelters. I mean, I've been going out with these flyers I can send a flyer to you to share, talking to the people hanging out at the Jewel or Whole Foods or the Dollar Tree and say, go to this welcome to il.org and see if you can get it. The shelter people showed up because they got bused there. Those not in shelters make appointments, but they don't show up, and we're not sure why they're not showing up. Like, can they not get down to the office to apply? Or do they think it's just another informational session? I mean, they're flying on their own wings and are not under the working with a case manager to help guide them. But I can send, who can I send this to?
You can send it to Chicago Women Take Action. But if you could put it in the chat tonight too, that would be a big help.
Yeah, and we can pass it out.
And we can distribute it to our membership.
Right. But
can we give Bernadine an email? So Kat, what's a good email?
Yeah, send me an email.
So info at chicagowomentake.action.org.
Yeah.
She just put it in the chat. Can you see it, Bernadine?
Okay, I'll put the information there and I'll send the flyer to chicagowomentake.action.org. Is that what it was?
Yes. Info at chicagowomentake.action.org.
Oh, the tangle.
Thank you so much. Oh, Judith.
I have a question for you, Bernadine, and thank you for helpful information. But for us to think about, and we can transmit to Fred, what is needed to expand your services or fill in the gaps in the pipeline? I mean, information is one, or getting out the word. Is it translated into Spanish? I mean, are there things that need to get done?
Yeah, the flyer is in Spanish, and you know, there are interpreters at the workshops, and they've had Venezuelan interpreters, which is really good to understand the Venezuelan Spanish. And I mean, there have been people from Haiti and Honduras and other countries there also. So whatever means you have through your churches, your local, you know, eateries, your local stores and shops to get, but people are suspicious. They don't want to venture into the unknown. So if they have some connection with a human person, they seem to respond a little better. Yeah.
It's great. This is so helpful, so interesting, and I think there's so many other questions. When we started this, a whole nother discussion. I think that we could all use is who are the folks? Who is coming? What do we know about the people who are coming to our communities, from the migrant communities? Many, for example, are Venezuelan, which I think Bernadine alluded to, but we really, I think this goes back to the question of the invisibility, really, of the new migrants coming to Chicago, and from our concern in terms of who are they, how can we respond, and how do and what do we know about the many, you know, thousands of people who have newly arrived. And we call ourselves a welcoming city. How welcoming are we? And how can we as CWTA be more welcoming? So this is gives us a taste of some of your concerns. I think there are many more that we'll share with Fred. And let me just ask you, those of you who are thinking about it, and once we transition to the conversation, say, I wish I had asked that. Let me put in my email address just to add, if you have other thoughts and concerns, please email them and I'll add them to the issues that you've raised. At this point, I think I want to transition. Anybody have a last question you want to add? Kat.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about the initial health screenings that migrants receive once they enter the city of Chicago, because of just kind of picking up on CDPH's reactive response to the recent measles outbreak. It's made me really curious to know, you know, I know that there are some initial health screenings, but I'd like to know a bit more like what that looks like, and what's the most ideal scenarios, because, you know, within these migrant shelters, within these congregate settings, the likelihood of diseases spreading, you know, it increases. So it's like, it's really important to know what health screenings are looking like from initial intake, once we're putting folks into these like congregate settings. So that's something that I'm really curious to know a bit more about.
Freddie, could you answer that?
Yes, those that have come in through shelters were referred over to the Belmont Cragen Clinic, which is one of Cook County Health's clinics. And during that time, they were screened for STIs, all sexually transmitted infections. They were receiving COVID shots, flu shots. and the children were getting vaccinated. I do like the report that they put out to make sure we could come against the rhetoric around the migrants are bringing measles over. No, that's not the case. They are more vulnerable to getting measles because they may not have had their series of vaccinations. So I do think just the education and everything that others have mentioned here would really be helpful. But those that were coming directly from the shelters were getting those basic screenings, which were the vaccines and immunizations for the children. And
Thank
those
you.
that turned out to be HIV positive, obviously they were linked to a HIV provider.
Terry?
And once they're in the shelters, I just remember that one young boy who we all saw has a beautiful face, who died in the shelter he got sick while he was there. So it's not just initial health screenings. How are they being taken care of? And once they are in a city-run shelter.
Freddie, do you have can you add to that in terms of the health services that the kids are
Yes.
getting?
And I think I do recall that story too. And I think I would add to this list, others were thinking what else, is the trauma of the transition and their journey here, the trauma that everyone suffered coming here and now getting here. So I think with that young man, that young baby could have had some medical issues prior to arriving. But to the question, those that are coming through county clinics, they are connected to primary care providers via those clinics. Now, not only the county, there's Esperanza. I think they have a huge population because they actually were housed in shelters. So they were able to connect them also. And there may be a list of other providers. Mount Sinai had a large group, county, of course, and those institutions that were able to manage it were able to take on some of those clients.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your comments and questions. I think we're going to transition to our next segment. We will be hearing from our longtime members, Helen Chiller and Mary Driscoll, and they are going to talk to you and find out what you're interested in and how you want to participate in this upcoming election in November, among other things, and how CWTA can be supportive. So, Mary, you and Helen have the floor.
Okay, thanks, Betty. So welcome everybody. So I'm going to start off by just giving a sort of an overview about some thoughts on the election, and then Helen is going to take it away and lead a discussion. So I just want to say that if everyone doesn't know this by now, I'm going to tell you that CWTA is not only a 501c3, but we have become a 501c4, which means that we can act overtly political, which means we can endorse candidates and overt political positions, which I can probably safely say that we will be doing in this presidential election. This presidential election that's coming up is really critical for our democracy, but not only for that, it's critical in our continuing fight against racism, critical for support for the middle class, for the working class, and for poor people, and to ensure women's continuing rights, including reproductive rights. So CWTA is going to be very active in this coming election. We're going to be doing voter registration, phone banking, texting, canvassing, fundraising, you name it. We're going to try and be there in any way that we can to promote Joe Biden and bring out the right to vote, the right to vote and the right vote. So two rights. And then we want to encourage all our members and all our supporters to be able to, and we will be able to help you to do this. We're lucky to live in a blue state. Illinois is a very blue state. But we still, in Illinois, I think we need to get people registered to vote, and we need to bring people out to vote. Not only in the presidential election, and other elections that are happening in Illinois and throughout the country. I mean, in Illinois, we're going to have a school board election. So there's going to be a big national election that's super important, but there's also going to be congressional elections and down ballot local elections that are going to be very important in Illinois and across the country. So unfortunately, while we're lucky to live in a blue state, even if everybody in Illinois came out and voted for Joe Biden, we still only have, I think it's 19 electoral votes to throw in the pot of 270 electoral votes. So this election could potentially, will potentially be won or lost by some swing states, including Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, which are pretty close to us, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. Those are the big ones. So keeping all of this in mind, that, you know, Illinois being a blue state, we have our own important races, but also the real meat of this election, because of the Electoral College, because of our process, is going to depend upon other states. I want to open up this discussion about what we can do in this coming election and how best to do what we can do. So Helen Schiller, who's a longtime board member and an author, is going to start us off talking about some things that I know she's been thinking about. And then hopefully that will encourage other people to speak up and to say what they're thinking about 2024 election. Helen, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me? Because I've been having trouble here with my technology. You can? Okay. So I guess I really just want to emphasize a couple of things. One is that I know that there's an awful lot of people who are like, don't know what they're going to do, or want to sit out, or concerned about any number of different issues that are going on that are discouraging them from participating in this election. So I think number one, that from my perspective, this is an election about defense. It's an election about protection against fascism. It's an election about, you can say it in a lot of ways. Biden keeps talking about it's a question about democracy. Actually, Liz Cheney does the same thing. But I think that for a lot of people that are on the fence, we need to frame this as a vote of not the better two evils, which I don't think this is, although for some people it is. So we should respect that they feel that way. But it's really a question of a bigger picture and defending, having a broader view, a larger view in terms of a whole, as opposed to one or two issues that we may legitimately feel very strongly about. But really, given the candidates that are running, they represent different directions enough that we should be concerned about what it means if one versus the other gets elected. And the best defensive position for us is Biden. Plus, he's done a series of good things that we should then identify. And certainly there is the issue here of all the things that Mary already mentioned, not the least of which is reproductive rights. The other thing, though, I think is really important for us to keep in mind, and for each of us to really think about what we want to do over the next, 7-8 months, is that it's important for us to keep the presidency out of the hands of the mega folks, but it's also important for us to keep if at all possible, to have a legislature that they can work with. And there are Senate races that are really critical around the country. There are also state representative races, which I think are more sort of hidden, in the sense that we look at states because of the electoral votes, And often what the Democratic Party has done is ignore the states that they think they can't win, or unfortunately, sometimes that they think that they have and they don't have to worry about, because they're only looking at the number of people necessary for the Electoral College. And I think that we need to heed those folks who are also looking at it in every state, those state representatives that could be changed. And there are some everywhere. And I think that in that sense, it's important to be able to know what we want to do there. Now, I know the Democratic Party is reviewing all this stuff, but I would like to also suggest that if members of CWTA are interested in finding out more about different races or are interested in going to different places, that we maybe we do some of our own investigation as well, in terms of people contacting people we may know there, exploring what the news is saying, going into what the issues are specific there, so that when we've defined however any one of us is going to participate, that we do so with some ground level knowledge and not with assumptions that are made generally, or what we think is relevant here that may not be relevant there. But I think we can be effective wherever we are. I just think that we should think about participating with others. And I'm sure Betty, for instance, that probably Push is doing some of the same evaluations. I know the Push often goes to other states to do work. And I think we should take advantage of all of the knowledge and work and activities that other people are doing, and see how we can recruit as many of our members to participate in whichever way anyone wants to in any of these races. But I think we should really be intentional about it. We should make sure that we're always talking to people here about getting out the vote, obviously. But there are places where we might really be able to make a difference if someone has the time to really commit that. And I know several members have been thinking about it. So this is a way for us to have some collective discussions and evaluations and passing on information that might be helpful. That's what's
Push
on my
is
mind.
doing primarily GOTB because we are 501c3, so we don't get into candidates.
Yeah, but we could maybe piggyback on some of that. So Push is doing get GOTV, which means you know where you want to target, right? And it's so, and also it means that you're more than likely to have your sort of the pulse of some of those more lesser known legislative races, where a few people participating, going door to door, making phone calls might be helpful. So I think that, yeah, I understand that. And so that's part of what we can do sort of as partnership, is piggyback on and do some of the other stuff that Push can't do, and hopefully add to whatever is going on, because you have very good contacts to do that in some places. And then anyone who might be working elsewhere, we can do more. But I think that that would be a good thing for us to do, is connect with you on that. So that's my defense. I'm sorry.
I was saying, does anyone have questions of Mary or Helen?
Or ideas?
Yeah, even ideas they want to submit.
Well, I know that there's a bunch of people that have been going to Wisconsin and doing work in Wisconsin actually since 2022. And and they've been going back. And so there's a bunch of people that are going there that what Helen was talking about, that we could plug into them as well. And they are connected with on the ground organizations in Wisconsin that have been doing work there for, like I said, several years.
Mm-hmm. I've gone up a number of times, and I have to say the Democratic Party is very well organized, and they are really out in the community in rural areas. And they love to have people, from Illinois or other places to come and work with them.
Seems like, I mean, we're really right at Wisconsin and Michigan, two of the most important states. And if we, as CWTA, could work with other groups and help organize people to start going into those two states, that would be tremendous.
Right. And if we can't if we can't go, we could also hook up and do phone banking or texting or postcarding, however, however groups that are there are organizing people that can't go directly to Canvas. So there's many ways to get involved. There's also fundraising that some candidates running for Congress or other types of other, more down ballot elections will need money. And that's another thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, I'd like to
Anne
also.
has her hand up too for a question.
Oh, yeah, well, I just was curious if either of you have thoughts about the Democratic National Convention and if there's anything that we should be doing at that time, whether it's reaching out to candidates in particular. Like, I don't even know what happens at that point. Is there something, but we have different issues that we have our, agenda on. Are there things that we should be bringing up at that time?
They put out notice for requests for volunteers. I can get that information to you.
Right. Well, I mean, that's one thing is like kind of hanging out at the convention and doing some stuff to help run the convention. I guess I was wondering about, like, as an organization, as wanting to bring issues to the forefront while people are in town. Like, do people have?
You mean to the platform committee, for example?
Yeah, whatever there is. Again, I am not at all familiar with how they run. I mean, is it a working on platform? That would be now then, right? Or is it if we don't like the platform, or if we want a certain part of it to be pushed forward? I'm not that familiar.
I don't know.
No,
I don't know. I'm not familiar either with how the convention works, but
they have several committees, but there's a platform committee, credentials committee, and the rules committee. And if you're concerned about certain issues that you want to be part of their platform, they would go to the platform committee, for example. Ellen has her hand up.
You think about having one of the electors that we just voted in to come and talk to us. I don't have the list in my head, but I'm sure that we know some of those people and could learn more about sort of like what the options and opportunities are.
good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Carol?
Yeah, I'm wondering, going back to something we talked about right at the beginning of the meeting before we got into our discussion on immigration. Do we have any idea how many states have ballot initiatives, statewide ballot initiatives on their ballots and what they encompass? And is that something we want to take a look at? How many of them might be on reproductive choice? How many of them might be on guns? How many of them might be, so that we could get a sense of, is that something, our ballot initiatives, something we might want to work on, which would span our C3 and our C4?
Wow, that's a great question.
And I don't know, I just wondered if there was any place that might pull all that information together from all the states. What states have ballot initiatives? I've never Googled it, but I certainly, could take a look and see.
Yeah, I am a part of the Progressive Mobilization Coalition, which is nationwide. And there are any number of people on there. There's a comms committee and several various groups that deal strictly with ballot initiatives, and they do phone banking for certain states where there's a ballot initiative dealing with reproductive rights or a gun law that they're trying to get passed. I could probably ask while I'm on the call. We have a call twice. We meet twice a week at 1 o'clock with Heather Booth and Robert Kramer. And I could ask some of the people that are on to give me some emails of where you can reach out to states that have initiatives.
Okay, or even just
way,
get,
that would be one way of reaching out to find out.
yeah. Or even if there's just a national list of what states have ballot initiatives. We know that Florida, their Supreme Court just said, yes, this ballot initiative is going to be on the ballot on choice, just today. So that's when we know is happening. But those are things that we could work on outside of Illinois. Probably there will be phone banks or things we can do, or writing postcards or things like that.
I'm sorry, Jane has her hand up. You're muted, Jane.
Sorry. In the same vein, Senate races, if we got a list, because I know in the past we've done, it's really a way that we can be involved from Illinois through the phones in supporting various candidates. We did it in Georgia, we did it in Pennsylvania and other places, and that would be, again, for people who want to do things from home. In addition to the ballot initiatives, the out-of-state important races.
Kat taking notes for all of these, students. Kat.
And it's also recorded, so we can.
Oh, right.
Pick up salient points. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Or maybe
any other suggestions?
I just wanted to add one thing, if I could. I think that one of the existing senators, Democratic senators, who's most at risk is Sherrod Brown. So we might also want to
in Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a big a phone bank. I think the lady is out of California, but they're doing phone banking for Ohio as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, one thing is we could really put out information about these important things that are being done and need people to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also could have somebody.
They just did a big push for the senator that was elected female in, I can't remember now if it was Virginia or Maryland, but she flipped and got 20 points above her opponent, her Republican opponent. And when she ran against him initially, she lost the last election by like 6 or 8 points, but she won this one by 20 points, and she ran on reproductive rights.
Are you thinking of the Alabama race?
Her name is
her last name is Lands, I think.
Yeah, Maryland Lands, I believe.
Yeah, she's great.
She's a representative, not a senator.
Yeah.
There's a project.
Maryland Lands.
There's a project called Project 50 that both Helen and I went to a fundraiser for. And they're looking at really throwing a lot of support and hopefully money at states that have had work around reproductive rights and some successes around reproductive rights on the ballot. And even if those states aren't necessarily the ones that are targeted by the Democratic National Party,
they're not, I think.
To look at the races, like their state Senate races, their local House races, or their congressional races, because reproductive rights really seems to be an issue that people can organize around, and that people who support reproductive rights can win over those that don't. So,
And you also need to look into Project 25, which is something I won't go into. It's very involved, but it's something that could affect all of our lives. And it's something that we don't want.
What is it? What did you say it was called?
Project 25.
Give us a
That's
couple
been-
sentences.
It's,
Yeah,
it's the
that's a
Heritage,
teaser. So yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
Heritage Foundation's plan
Oh, yeah.
for if Trump wins, what they want to put in place.
Oh, my God.
oh,
It is so scary.
can't win.
Well,
I
so
heard a little
the,
bit,
so
I heard a
but
little bit
scary.
about it. It was horrifying. Yeah.
No, it is a structural fascism. They have endorsed a structural fascism. That's
Yeah.
simple words and
It's very frightening.
yes.
Very
But
fair.
that ought to be enough to get us motivated
Uh,
and put really concrete lists together, and a menu of options.
Yeah,
Hopefully
maybe we
for
could,
yeah.
maybe we could get some of these people from these various projects, maybe someone who's a delegate to the convention, someone from Project 50, from Project 25, just to let us know what's happening, around the country and other ways to plug in. Because the more places we can offer our members and supporters to plug in, I think that would be very good. And also how we want to organize ourselves as an organization. What do we want to do as CWTA? What's the best thing for us to be doing?
You know, at all our meetings coming up, we could have at least one person from an organization make a presentation.
Yes.
Mhm.
They mentioned one lady on The View last week during Women's History Month, Andrea Miller, who is an activist, a nationwide activist. And she's someone I'll look into about us having her come to one of our meetings. She organizes all across the country.
There's a hand up.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I just want to put a plug in for Wisconsin. A couple people have mentioned it, and they are extraordinarily well organized. And you can join online by sitting at your computer at home. They will do training sessions for you. And I don't have handy I've attended some of these. I don't have handy, but I think it's wisdems.com.
Yeah.
And the head of I can't think of his name. Head of the
Winkler.
Dan
Yes,
Wickler.
He's
Wickler, yeah.
He's fabulous. I mean, he talks at a lot of places, and I don't know whether, I probably would give us half an hour if we asked him.
Did
but-
we have him as a speaker before?
Yeah, we've had him.
We had.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, then you know about that. I just want to put a plug in for them because you can work from home and they have all sorts of options. They will give you a list of calls to make, to do right things, etc.
Yeah, he's the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Any more questions? Any more suggestions? I'll turn it back over to Judith.
Oh, I haven't changed my name on this. So I'm Judith Cossey and I'm Betty's co-chair. And Jackie Grimshaw is the chair. I think this has been a great conversation. And as I think Betty or whoever said, that we can start providing information about the important things that are going on that people can get involved in. And then we have to really focus on, what CWTA, how we can fit in to something and bring people with us. So, there's some new people here that thank you for your participation and we will be in touch. I mean, because we'd love you to work with us. And, if you have ideas, shoot us notes because this is going to be an ongoing process that we really have to or we will get organized around. With that, thank you. And we'll all be in touch. And we look forward to working together because this is important.
Good night.
And let me thank you all for your
Conversation.
ideas on immigration, and we will be following up with our a meeting soon with Fred Tsao and with you
Yeah.
with your thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.